This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always up to date on all the newest stuff whenever we drop it. If you can give us if you can follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you are on social media, we are too. So just give us a follow. We can interact there. You can talk about the things you liked on the podcast, things you didn't, different topics you may want me or the other hosts on the network to discuss. We can all do it there. If you can, please give us a 5-star rating and review. It's very helpful. It would allow us to continue to get better and continue to give you guys dope content week in and week out. And clearly, whatever Joe Judge said to Gettleman in his interview, I guess Gettleman would have given it 5 stars because he hired the guy. I recorded this on Tuesday night, so Joe Judge was hired to be the next head coach of the New York Football Giants earlier today, and this is definitely a hiring that came a little bit out of nowhere. It seemed like Matt Rule was their guy. He didn't end up there. I'll talk about where he ended up in a little bit. Mike McCarthy's another guy I seemed to covet. He didn't end up there. Jason Garrett was another guy whose name was floated out there for the head coach position. He may still end up there. We'll talk about that in a second. But Joe Judge is the guy. He's the guy that's going to get the deal. He's the guy. He's been around Nick Saban. He's been around Bill Belichick. So two of the best football coaches, football minds in the world. He's been able to pick their brains over his coaching tenures. That is definitely going to be helpful for him. He was a guy who has been the special teams coordinator in New England for a little while now. Obviously, he was, as much talked about today, he was also the wide receivers coach this year, which is unfortunate for him because this so happened to be the year where the Patriots were able to get nothing really outside of Edelman from their wide receiver position. It wasn't his fault that Antonio Brown got released or Josh Gordon got released. Obviously, those guys could have helped. They got released for different reasons, so I understand why they're not on the team. But obviously, I'd imagine the wide receiver group is maybe just a tad bit better if both those guys are still there. You never know, but I would imagine not having both of those guys definitely hurt the unit and definitely hurt him in terms of his ability to coach up said unit. But their special teams was great. It has been great for years. Obviously, Belichick has some experience there in his past, so that definitely helps. But he's the guy coordinating that unit. And in terms of special teams coordinator turned head coach, I would imagine Giants fans everywhere, the Giants front office people, Giants players, whoever, are hoping and praying that this guy's the second coming of John Harbaugh. He's probably the most notable recent name to get a head coaching job as someone who was not an offense coordinator, defense coordinator, like position coach kind of guy. He was a special teams coordinator with the Eagles for a while, and he's been with the Ravens since 2008, won a Super Bowl, had many other successful seasons, and I think if there was a guy you hope Joe Judge follows in the footsteps of, you hope it is John Harbaugh. Because, obviously, winning a Super Bowl, even just one, is, for most franchises, that'd be good enough. Your coaching tenure has been well worth it, in my opinion. Obviously, we don't know that for a fact, but We don't know for a fact how the organizations will feel if Judge is even able to win them one. But as of this moment, this isn't. I mean, people aren't even sure he's going to be able to win them one because people are talking about how, and fair or not fair, a lot of people didn't even know who this guy was at this time yesterday. So it's not his fault. I mean, he was an NFL head coach, so he obviously knew who he was, and Patriots fans might have known who he was, but clearly he was not the hot name out there. So his hiring was a bit of a surprise, but it's one that could turn out to be pretty good. I mean, sometimes the hot name is not really the one you want. I mean, if you look back at, and as we talked about today, the 2016 coaching cycle, like coaches that were hired in that cycle, you had Ben McAdoo, Hugh Jackson, Adam Gase, all guys who were not with the team that hired them that year. And then you have Doug Peterson, who was rated as the worst hire. Eagles fans didn't want him. National media, NFL pundits all over were wondering why. They just thought it was just like, oh, they hired him because he knew Andy Reid. He's not going to work out. He'll be out of the league in a couple of years. And look where he is now. Won a Super Bowl, taking his team to the playoffs the last 3 years, something only 3 other teams have done, one of them being the Patriots. So sometimes that sexy hire, that big, flashy name value, like, oh, I know who this guy is, I've seen him do this over here, or I've seen him do that over there, sometimes isn't the one that's the best scenario for your team. Obviously, it works for some teams, it doesn't work for others, but it's important when you're going through the search to look for what's best for your team and your franchise, and clearly the Giants thought this was the best. I mean, it's unfortunate that Gettleman was the one that picked him because not everything Gettleman has done so far has worked out. Obviously, they just had to fire the last coach he picked within 2 years, so not exactly a ringing endorsement, but you hope that this guy is more Bill Belichick than he is Pat Shurmur. And I mean, obviously, Belichick disciples haven't had great success in the NFL, but you hope this guy can be more of the Mike Vrabel side of things as opposed to like the Romeo Crennel, Charlie Weiss side of things, in terms of being a good coordinator, but just not being a good head coach. And I mean, one thing that will benefit him, and as was talked about today on social media and TV platforms everywhere, was that being a special teams coordinator, maybe more than anything else, helps you with being able to be a leader of men due to the fact that you have to deal with guys on both the offensive and defense side of the balls. You have to get them to buy in and do something that they may or may not really necessarily want to do. I mean, these guys that are playing special teams, I mean, these guys were great on their high school teams. They might have been stars on their college teams. And they're guys coming in that may not be used to having to fight for their spot on the roster. So you got to convince the guys, like, hey, this is important. This is, I mean, it's not necessarily as important as offense and defense, but I mean, good special teams could very well help swing a game, as was shown by the Patriots in their ability to block punts and get scores off those block punts. Those can, or even like return touchdowns, whatever, those can really help swing the momentum in a game, if you believe in momentum. It can help swing the momentum in a game, help change field position, can help change the tide, the fortunes, or whatever. Can be a big boost for your team. So having good special teams can be very important. So getting guys to buy into that philosophy and that mindset that, hey, we're doing something just as important as the starters on offense and defense is not, as I would imagine, not that easy. But if he was able to do that, and obviously, like I said, the Patriots special teams with some of Bill Belichick's blueprint have been great. So clearly Joe Judge is doing something right. And like I said, you just hope that he turns into John Harbaugh if you're a Giants fan. And he may very well be. We really don't know. That's the one thing that I dislike about coaching hires and just the way the world is now, just all so hot takey and reactionary in terms of like, oh, we have to say immediately whether this is a good hire or a bad hire. Like, you don't know. You won't know until next year, maybe not 2-3 years down the road, how good this hire was. Because, I mean, if you watched, again, look at Doug Peterson in his first year. I mean, had a rookie quarterback, but they won like 7-9, I believe. So it's like, all right, on paper, that's not a bad year, but it's like he had some questionable decisions, did some things people maybe didn't agree with, and the next year, boom, won a Super Bowl. with the backup. Next year, boom, make the playoffs again with the backup. Next year, boom, they make it to the playoffs again with a bunch of through a bunch of injuries, having to call up multiple, like, I think by the end they had like 15, 16 guys on their active roster that were on practice squads at one point. Like, that's not easy to do in order to sustain that level of success. And again, if you view that after the one season, you might have been like, oh, I don't know if Doug Peterson's a good head coach. So it's the same thing we do with the draft. You like give teams draft grades the night of, and I'm just like, all right, that's cool because like on paper this stuff will work, but you don't play games on paper. You don't coach games on paper. So why not judge the draft class after we've seen them play, even in a preseason game or like a regular season or half a regular season or a full 16 games, whatever. Like wait till then to grade as opposed to just having to be like, oh, we gotta say, oh, Daniel Jones' pick was bad. Oh, the what's it called? Kyler Murray pick was good. Mainly just the Daniel Jones one was the big one that everybody kind of ridiculed the Giants for, at least at that time. And it was like, I don't think the Giants would trade the pick. And I think knowing what people know now, they would go back and curtail or take back some of the things they have to say about Daniel. So it's just like, there's no need to be so reactionary. But as I mentioned earlier, Jason Garrett was another guy that was linked to the team, and he's the guy that may very well still end up on the coaching staff as they request to interview him to be the offensive coordinator, which would be interesting because he is a guy that given that play call in the last couple of years, so it'd be interesting to see how he takes that back, what his offense now, updated from a few years ago, would look like, and also it would allow and give Joe Judge some experience on his coaching staff, because that's the thing when you're a young, inexperienced, at least head coach, you want some of those guys on your coaching staff that have been around before. I look at Sean McVay, he brought in a Wade Phillips to handle the defense just so like he didn't have to worry about that. Same thing Doug Peterson did. He brought in Frank Reich, who had been an offensive coordinator in the league before. Brought in Jim Schwartz, who had been a head coach and a defense coordinator in the league before. Just when you don't have that coaching experience, at least in whether college, professional, whatever, you don't have that head coaching experience, let me say. It's important to have guys around you that do, or kind of understand how it works to help you through some of those moments, just because they're going to be growing pains, you're not going to do everything right, and you're going to need some guys in your corner and in your ear trying to help you, coach you through that. So while Jason Garrett, again, now an inspiring for the fan base hire as the offensive coordinator, he could be a guy that could be good for Joe Judge just because he gives him a guy who's been there, done that before, dealt with high-profile franchise, dealt with scrutiny, dealt with the media, all that stuff, ups and downs of being a coach, and he'll be a guy that Joe Judge could lean on in order to get him through some of the what could be early growing pains. For all I know, he could just flat out let Matt LaFleur and just hit the ground running. So you never really know with these things, but if he doesn't, you need Jason Garrett in his corner to help coach him through that, and we'll see what he does with the DC, but I think that's almost more crucial than the head coaching hires, the staff you assemble around them. Because the head coach can only do so much. He can't do everything. So it's going to be important to hire good positional coaches, good offensive and defensive coordinators to help him through that, good special teams coordinators to help him through that. So like I said, we don't really know how it's going to go, but I'll give I don't want to get him the benefit of the doubt because again, some of his decisions have, and some of the things he said have left me scratching my head, to say the least, but it'll be interesting to see in this scenario how the Joe Judge thing works out. But when we get back from this break, we'll talk about a couple more of the hires that happened in the last day or so, and also how this coaching cycle, I should say, was different than the last couple coaching cycles. And explain to you what I mean right after this break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Broadcast Network. So another one of the hires that went down was Matt Rule got hired. And honestly, people thought he was going to be with the Giants. It seemed like that was where it was reported he wanted to be. It seemed like he was the Giants' first choice, but that is not where he ended up. He had his meeting, or interview, I shouldn't say. Meeting, interview, whatever you want to call it, with the Panthers, I believe, Monday. And whatever he was buying, the Panthers ownership and front office was selling. I mean, whatever he was selling, the Panthers organization was buying because they didn't let him leave without a contract offer. So you knew that was the guy they wanted. I mean, he even reportedly called the Giants, gave him the chance to match the offer. They declined. So then he ends up with the Panthers. And that was an interesting one because he was really the only... Well, he's been so far. At least we'll see what the Browns do. But he's the only, college guy that got that bump in terms of most of the other hires have been... Either they were in the professional ranks at some point, whether this year and previous years or whatever. They've been around the NFL. And he wasn't. And it'll be interesting to see how he makes a transition from college to the NFL, and obviously he was given some job security, got 7 years, got a 7-year contract, and he's shown his ability to be able to build a program. I mean, he took the Baylor team, a Baylor program, a job that very few people seem to want. He had a nice, comfy, cozy job at Temple. I mean, Division I, but nothing too serious. Decided to take the risk and go down to Waco. And he did a good job. Took that team from 1-11 to I think they finished this year at 11-3, including their bowl game. I mean, and a lot of that was with some of those same players that were on the 1-11 team. So this isn't like it's college. You can't just completely overhaul the roster. You have who you have, who decided to stay and who decided to leave. So his ability to do that is, you would think, is a good sign in terms of his ability to be able to build up and lead. Build up a team, be like that CEO type of figure, which is, more so than just X's and O's, because there's a lot of guys who may be smart enough to call plays good enough and call defense good enough to be at the head coaching position, but not everybody is good with dealing with guys, dealing with relationships, dealing with stars, obviously, when you're in college, what you're dealing with kids 18 to 22, 23 years old, depending on if they stay extra time. And they're more inclined to listen to you, again, because they're not getting paid, than a 28, 29 NFL veteran who's on a second contract, who's made Pro Bowls, made All-Pro teams, and is just looking at this new guy who are you? You haven't been around here. But due to his pedigree to be able to build up programs from the ground up, that at least should buy him some level of belief from the players in terms of we obviously may not come to fruition right away, but if you believe in his plan and see it through, on the other side of it, it'll be worthwhile. So I've been interested to see how that goes. And again, he's another guy like Joe Judge. You're going to need to build a good staff around him because, again, he hasn't been at the NFL level before in terms of a head coach. So you want to be able to build guys around him, whether it's with the OC and the DC, that have some of that experience that he can lean on in terms of being able to not have to go through this thing all alone. Because if he just brings up a bunch of college people that they might not know how to handle the NFL level, and that obviously may not go as well as they would have liked. So, and also I'm interested to see what he does with Cam Newton, obviously, because the rest of their quarterback room not great. So they kind of, you guys. So I see if Cam's healthy, because if he's not healthy, then obviously you have a decision to make. But if he is healthy, I think it makes sense to keep him, and obviously he's a guy who could run some of that RPO college, quote-unquote, college offense that Baylor runs. He was successful in that kind of stuff at Auburn, and they obviously tried to make him a more drop-back passer in the league, but that's... you have to drop back and throw, so I'm not saying that you're going to do away with that, but maybe he could stand to... Maybe it would help him. Let me just say, maybe it would help Cam out if he had some more of those RPOs, some of those more college concepts in there. So that's what made him successful before he got to the league. So why would not make him successful now? But interesting to see with that. And then the last hire that was made recently was Mike McCarthy. He was brought in to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they wanted him so bad. They interviewed him when Jason Garrett still had a job, technically. They wanted him so bad he stayed an extra night in Dallas because his interview went so well with Jerry Jones. So, obviously, this is a guy. I mean, they only interviewed Marvin Lewis. So, this was a very short coaching search. And clearly, the guy they wanted is the guy they got. So, interesting to see how the year off from football, from the NFL at least, changed him. Because this is a guy who, towards the end of his time in Green Bay, it was said that his offensive playbook was growing a little stale. He had his wrist with Aaron Rodgers, and obviously this is a guy who, as evidenced by the, I believe, 2014 NFC Championship game with Seattle, lacked some of that aggressiveness that a lot of the analytical people or the new coaches nowadays have, in terms of he kicked multiple field goals on fourth down from the 1 yard line in an NFC Championship game in which the Packers end up losing in overtime. So it's like, hey, stands to reason that maybe you go for one of those touchdowns, go for one of those fourth and goals, get a touchdown. Who knows? Maybe they win the game. So it'd be interesting to see how he self-scouted and how he decides to run his offense, or even if he does decide to run his offense. I know Kellen Moore is a guy who Dallas brass loved. He seemed to be that next McVay type that Dallas was kind of grooming him to be. Maybe even take over for Jason Garrett. Obviously, that didn't happen, but it'd be interesting to see if he stays around, because Ryan McCarthy is a guy who called plays and then gave it up, and then he said he regretted that. So it'd be interesting to see if Kellen Moore is willing to take a demotion of sorts, in terms of he'll still be the OC but just not call the plays, or if Ryan McCarthy will be able to take a step back and be like, hey, I like what you did, you can continue to call plays. I'm interested to see how that dynamic works. But yeah, those were the hires, and this cycle was definitely a little bit different than previous cycles, because there weren't really any of those like sexy, splashy, big name hires. Like Washington went with an experienced head coach already, Ron Rivera, who was fired from another position, but like that's not like that big of a name. Ryan McCarthy probably has the most pedigree out of all the coaches that were hired. Obviously, he's won a Super Bowl, but again, he was a guy that was run out of Green Bay. He sat out a whole year. No one really seemed that interested in bringing him in. Matt Rule was really the only college guy, and he's a guy who at this time last year no one was talking about as being a head coach. He only got talked up from the media just because he was doing so well at Baylor that people were like, hey, like if he can do well here, like why wouldn't he get a head coaching job? Kind of thing. He didn't even sound like he wanted to leave, but obviously when the NFL comes calling you get $60 to $70 million, you're not going to turn that down. I don't care who you are. And then you have obviously Joe Judge, who was a name that many people before today didn't even know of. So it is just like this cycle lacked that, let's go find the next Sean McVay or the next like Andy Reid disciple or like whoever for whatever reason. And I do believe that may be beneficial in terms of organizations are learning from the mistakes of others. Obviously, sports in general are a very copycat league, so it's a situation where what works, people want to replicate. So that's why a lot of people are trying to find that next offensive genius, whether that was in recent years Cliff Kingsbury or Zach Taylor or Matt LaFleur, whatever it was, the guy that was a quote-unquote offensive whiz that could help and quarterback, I don't want to say whisperer, but like guru of sorts or whatever, or what have you. I mean, it's kind of why Adam Gase got hired, because he was supposed to be like quarterback whisperer, because he worked with arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Tom Brady's the GOAT. In case you didn't know. But he worked with Peyton Manning. Had great numbers there. I mean, and yeah, the offense was great there, but a lot of that may very well just have been Peyton Manning. But a lot of guys kind of got hired because of their offensive acumen. And this time around, it really wasn't the case. It was like, who do I think could best run my organization? And I think that change is important, because that is who best runs the offense, who best works for the quarterback, may not be what is the best for the team, i.e. Freddie Kitchens. No offense to Freddie. It was not he didn't hire himself. He got hired, but it was clear he may have gotten elevated too quickly, and thus is now without a job. And I think people see the guy that you try to be like, oh, let's elevate this guy because he worked well with the quarterback. And it's like, all right, just because he worked well with one guy does not mean he will work well with 52 other guys. And I think teams are realizing that there's more to it than just X's and O's or being a quote-unquote quarterback whisperer, because when you're the head coach, you can only spend so much time with the quarterback because you have, like I said, you have other positions, other people that are going to need you on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis, that you don't just have all your time to focus on the one position and getting him better. So, again, that's why I'm talking about the importance of building your staff. But I do believe that teams shot away from that this year. And, I mean, we'll see what happens next year if it comes back. The Lincoln, I mean, also the Browns have to finish their head coaching situation out. So, for all we know, they could be the team that makes that splashy hire. But as of right now, that hasn't happened. And we'll see if this is just like a blip in the radar in terms of this is the exception, or if this is the new rule in terms of teams are going to try to find more established coaches, maybe not people that were head coaches before, but just have been around a while and aren't just like the new hot thing that be like, oh, you were with such and such for a year, oh, you were offense coordinator here for a year and you guys did good. Because I mean, you would think that because based on that, obviously Bieniemy and Greg Roman aren't young, but they're coordinators for two of the best offenses in the league. And while they've gotten interviews, they haven't been hired yet. And if these were past cycles, they would have been one of the first or second names off the board in terms of people trying to bring them in and revamp their offense and work with their quarterback and yada, yada, yada. And that didn't happen this year. So I'm interested to see, again, is that's the exception? This is the new rule. But regardless, all these head coaching hires are interesting in their own right, and it'll be interesting to see how they all pan out, especially since 3 of them happen in the same division. So, like they're going to be fighting against each other along with Doug Peterson. So, I do believe that the NFC East will not be the worst division in football next year, or worst division in NFL history next year. But again, you never know. But yeah, so we will keep our eyes on the Browns, see what they do, whatever that is. When it happens, I will be here to discuss it with you. But coming up next, we will talk about the excellence, the dominance of a young, budding superstar in the league, an MVP candidate. And no, I am not talking about Giannis. I'll tell you who I am talking about right after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. And the player that I was talking about is none other than the one and the only Luka Doncic. Now, Luka has having himself a sensational season. I mean, just unbelievable. He's averaging almost 30 points at 29.7. I believe it, yeah. 29.7 points, 9.7 rebounds, 8.9 assists. And he's just been a guy who has been dominant all year, has his team in position currently as a 6th seed in the West. Could very well move up or down just because the West is very tight right now. Very, very tight right now. I think they're currently They're currently 2 games back of second place. It was 4.5 games back to the Lakers in first place, but though Anthony Davis went down tonight, so we'll see if they drop back to the pack. But yeah, that 2 through 6, all within 2 games, so teams will be moving up and down throughout the entire season. There'll be a fight to the end, much like it was last year, much like it was 2 years ago, in terms of you don't really know. The seeding may very well go down to the last day. But that's unimportant. What is important is how well Luka has been playing this year. And I mean, he's a guy who came in last year as a rookie and was great. I mean, won Rookie of the Year. Was good, basically start to finish. Didn't have the team success he probably would have hoped for, but he himself was as good as people thought he could have been coming over here after playing professionally over in Europe for a couple years as a teenager. Came in last year, averaged 21 points, 7.8 rebounds, 6 assists, shot 42% from the field, and like I said, most of those numbers are up. I mean, actually, all those numbers are up. He's shooting better from the field with 47.5%, better from 3 with 33% as opposed to 32.7, so a little bit uptick. Shooting 80% from the free throw line as opposed to 71 last year. Has averaging almost 2 more rebounds, almost 3 more assists, and over 8.5 more points. And he's a guy that's firmly cemented himself in that MVP race. And it's just on a night-to-night basis, it's just like it seems like every game Luka is doing something sensational. Now, should this be surprising? No, because he did make the point to say earlier this year as in like in February, so like I take that back, it's January now. So earlier last year, excuse me, I forgot that we have turned the page now to 2020. Earlier last year in February, he talked about how scoring in the NBA was easier, not because like the players are worse or he's just that good or whatever, but just because the court is bigger, so there's literally more space on the floor to score. And obviously, the defensive 3 seconds, in the NBA, which is something that I guess over in Europe they did not have, and that's a big difference. So you can't just have guys camp out in the paint all day. But even outside of that, he's just been a machine this year. He has more 30-point triple-doubles than everyone else in the league combined right now. He has 9 of those on the season compared to 8 for the rest of the league. And LeBron is the only player with multiple 30-point triple-doubles this year. Earlier this year, he had 20 straight games of 25-5, which is the longest such record by anyone other than Oscar Robertson. It only got snapped because he sprained his ankle in a game. Longer than Michael Jordan. That was pointed out to him, and he's like, I don't care about those numbers. The only number I care about is winning. Much like Lamar Jackson, who we will talk about in the next segment, has kind of said that he doesn't really matter about all his accolades and awards and how good he's doing and what records he's broken or whatever. Like, obviously, he's appreciative, and that's great, but he cares about winning. And I think that was his biggest issue last year, was especially during that after the All-Star break, they just kept losing games, and he was great. I remember that one game he had against the Nuggets, where he drives in for the 3-point play, gets the dunk over like 2 guys to take the lead, and then Jokic comes down next possession and hits a shot, and they lose. And it's just like, those are the kind of things that were happening to him last season that aren't happening to him as much this season. They're at 23-13, I believe. Yes, they are currently 23-13, so definitely an improvement over last season. Obviously, he's better players around him this year, but he's also stepped his game up. He has 11 triple-doubles on the season. The Mavs are 7-4 in those games. He broke the franchise record set by Jason Kidd for like the most triple-doubles in the season by a Maverick. He just had another 35-point triple-double the other night against the Bulls, and it's the second time this season that Doncic has had 35-plus point triple-doubles in consecutive games. He scored at least 35 points in a triple-double 6 times this season, and both James Harden and LeBron only have 1 such game this year. So just like in terms of like what he's doing, especially at his age, it's crazy. I mean, he's only 20 years old, hasn't even turned 21 yet, and he already has the most triple doubles by a player before their 21st birthday, and it's like by a lot too. Like the next guy is Magic, and he only has 7. And like I said, it's a shame. Well, not like I said, but it is a shame that Russell Westbrook has because of Russell Westbrook, people have devalued the triple double, because what Luka is doing in terms of his ability to score, facilitate, and rebound is not easy to do. And I say that because like everyone always claimed with Russ that he's just stat padding, anyone could do this, blah blah. They box other the teammates don't go for rebounds. He like rebound chases, he assists chasing them and everything. And I'm just like, look, if it were that easy, everybody in the league would do it. Like you get like people get paid more because they have these high numbers in terms of rebounding, assists, whatever. So if it were that easy for everyone to get double-digit points, double-digit rebounds, double-digit assists in a game, a lot more people would be doing it. And as we're seeing, especially in terms of scoring output that Luka has to go along with those assists and rebounds, like it's not that easy because he's one of the few people doing it and doing it at the rate and with the amount of scoring that he is doing it with. So just the season's great, and he's a guy who, if he is able to surpass James Harden, if like I said, they're all very close in that 2 through 6 range in the West. And if he can get his team above the Rockets, like now he might even be in second place in the MVP voting, and then all we need is for the Bucks to slip up a little bit, or maybe just like voter fatigue in terms of like there are many times in many sports where like I mean it's the same thing that happened with MJ where he could have won MVP every single year, but all right, you get tired of it. I mean, Giannis has only won 1, but like it's like all right, well Luka's having a great season. Let's give him. He's a new guy. Let's give him something. Same thing happened with like the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings of the world, where I imagine they could have had even more MVPs if they wanted to, but I mean, you can't give it to him every year, you would think. So it's just a situation where Luka is positioning himself to where he could very well be the MVP of the league in his second year. I think he turns 21 in February. So at 21 years old, he could win. He could be the MVP. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it's not out of the realm of possibility. And that just is a testament to him taking his game to the next level. And it's just like, where can he go from here? Like, he's already averaging almost a 30-point triple-double in his second year at 20 years old. What will he be at even next year at 21? What will he be at 24? What will he be at 28? Will he be averaging 35, 12, and 12? Like, I mean, like, what's, like, if you're already up to this at this point in your career, and you're only going to get better and smarter as your career goes along, assuming he stays healthy, knock on wood, but, like, where could he be in 4 or 5 years when he actually hits his prime? Because he's not even close to hitting his prime yet. Obviously, I know he's been playing professionally for a little bit of a while, but he's still 21. He's still not even, like, fully... He's not even 21. He can't even have a drink yet. Like, it's just, like, it's crazy. Like, he has, as crazy as it sounds, he has still so much to grow as an NBA player and as a basketball player in general. Like, to think where he could be in the very near future is crazy. So... I mean, if you haven't been paying attention to Luka, I advise you to pay attention yesterday. Like, literally, like, go look up his highs from games this season. Go look up that Bulls game from the other night. Go look up any of his other marvelous games he's had this season. And pay attention to him in the future, because he's going to be somebody that we very well could be talking about as one of the all-time greats. Obviously way down the road, but we could be seeing the beginning of a legendary career, and it's like, why would you miss that? I mean, like I said, there may very well be no one. I mean, you talk to Bucks and Rockets fans, they would disagree with this, but right now there may be no one that is playing at the level that he's playing at right now in the league. I mean, even Lakers fans with LeBron and stuff, but I'm just saying, at his age, no one is playing at the level he's playing at. And maybe not. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's crazy. So if you haven't paid attention, please start paying attention. If you're a basketball fan, he's a guy that we're going to be talking about for years and years to come. So might as well get started on it early. I know. I try to catch Mavs game whenever I can. I think they play the Lakers coming up this week. So I will be tuned into that one. I would advise you tune in as well, because whenever he's out there on the court with LeBron, he tries to put on a show. I mean, he puts a child spot on the show every night, so this is like nothing new. But obviously, when you're facing other players who you believe are on your level, you try to raise your game up, and I imagine that's what Luka's going to try to do in this game. So I know, like I said, I will be tuned in. I would advise you to tune in and keep tuning in because this guy, I don't think is showing any signs of slowing down. So it should be an interesting rest of the season to see how he continues to grow and how possibly the MVP race plays out because he's very much a part of it at this moment. And I think he will continue to be the rest of the season because, like I said, unless he hits some sort of wall or something, I think he's going to be one of the leading candidates, potentially one of the finalists for the award. And again, second year, that's crazy. Very few players are that good that early. And the ones that are that good that early are like some of the best to ever play the game. So, like I said, we could be watching one of the best to ever play the game in only his second season being as good as anybody in the league. But he is not the only one who is dominating his sport at such a young age. His or her sport, let me say that, at such a young age. There's an influx of young talent across all sports that I love, and I think most sports fans will love. We would talk about this influx and like why it's happening, what it means after this break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back on the GSMC Sports Podcast. So as I talked about in the last segment, Luka has been sensational. But he is not the only one that has been this great this early into his career across sports. Like if you look at even in his own sport, Trae Young, who in his own right is having a great year. And it's unfortunate that the players around him are not living up to or not playing at the level of Trae Young, because then we would be talking about him differently in the year he's having a little bit differently if he was averaging some of these numbers on a team that wasn't one of the worst teams in the league, which again, not completely his fault, but I mean, it's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. This isn't golf. This isn't tennis. So it's just unfortunate, but I mean, he's averaging 28.9 points, 8.4 assists, 4.3 rebounds. He's shooting 37% from 3, 45% overall, 85% from the free throw line. He's having a great year, but unfortunately we can't talk about that as much as we would like. I mean, he's still going to be an all-star, may very well make one of the all-NBA teams, but obviously the Hawks don't have 10 wins, so he's being left out of these conversations. But again, he's a young guy having a great season. And if you look at the NFL, there have been a multitude of young quarterbacks recently who have come in and taken the league by storm. I mean, if you just look at this current season that we're in, Lamar Jackson, who just turned 23 years old this week, is going to win the MVP. He had led the league all before he turned 23. So mind, this was all while he was 22. Led the league in touchdown passes this year with 36. Set the rushing record for most yards by QB in a season. His second year in the league has already set the record. May very well break it next year and in years to come. He's the first player ever to rush for 1,000, throw 30-plus touchdown passes in a season. And he's going to be a first-team All-Pro. I mean, well, not he's going to be. He was a first-team All-Pro. He's going to be the MVP. All before he turns 20, or all before his He did all this, technically, the season ended before his 23rd birthday. So he very well could be the youngest MVP since, I believe, like Jim Brown or something. Like, what he's doing and the level he's doing it at, especially at his age, unprecedented. If you go back last season, you had another second-year quarterback who basically was playing in his rookie season because he didn't play. I think he just played like the last game of the season with the Chiefs his first year. And obviously I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes, but he threw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdown passes. I mean, I think only Peyton had done that up until that point. And even if there were others, which I don't think, like I said, which I don't think there were, but he did it in his second year in the league. Like, his first year as a starter, he threw 5,000 yards, 50 touchdown passes. Crazy. And it was just like some of the things, some of the throws, some of the plays he was making were just like you had never seen quarterbacks be able to make these plays. And the same thing with Lamar, just like you had never seen players make these plays. It was absurd. Then if you go back even the year before that, you had Carson Wentz, who, again, the fact he didn't win MVP was dumb to me because, okay, he played 13 games. Team went 11-2, threw 33 touchdowns, leading the league in touchdown passes. I think finished second in the league in touchdown passes, even though he missed 3 games, which showed you how good he was that year. Could have easily thrown for 40 plus with the 3. I mean, maybe 40 plus would have been pushing it because he had 3 games left. If they win the next 2, he wouldn't have played in the last game. So who knows? But if he had just missed the 3 games in the beginning of the season instead of 3 games at the end of the season, he wins MVP. That whole argument was dumb to me, but whatever. Should have won MVP. But again, he was another second-year quarterback, taking the lead by storm, doing things that we had seen very few other quarterbacks capable of doing. And it's just like, players nowadays are just coming in, and it's just like, I'm just like, could this happen again next year? Is there another second-year quarterback that could very well make this MVP caliber leap? Is it Kyler Murray? Is it Daniel Jones with a different offense and a better O-line? Is it, I don't know about Minshew, because I don't know if he'll be starting this year, but like, there have been quarterbacks in 3 consecutive years, second-year guys who play at an MVP level, and like that's just crazy when you think of just how good players are coming into the league like that young and being the best at their position for that year. And I mean, you could argue Lamar and Mahomes are the 2 best quarterbacks in the league currently. Like, and you would get a lot of nods in agreement if you said that. Like, honestly, like. Russell Wilson's probably the only other guy you could put up there in terms of at their level, maybe Aaron Rodgers in terms of talent, but he hasn't played like it this year, so he's probably a notch below. Deshaun Watson's a notch below. I believe Carson Wentz is a notch below because, again, he's some things he does and some of the throws he makes and some of the plays and things he gets out of, no one else in the league can do. So I think he's, at least talent-wise, he's on that second tier of quarterbacks, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, just like these young guys are coming to the league, second year in the league, MVPs. Crazy. When you look at the MLB, Pete Alonso, rookie, comes in. I mean, obviously a little bit of an older rookie. Baseball is a little bit different because not everybody comes in young. But Juan Soto did. We'll get to him in a minute. But Pete Alonso comes in, breaks the rookie home run record. His 53 home runs, hits the most home runs in Mets history. Has a great year, wins Rookie of the Year, was All-Star, was the Home Run Derby champ. Almost led the Mets to the playoffs. He did his best. I mean, obviously, they had other issues outside Pete Alonso for why they didn't get in, but he came to the league, set the league on fire. I mean, 53 home runs is a lot for anybody, let alone for a rookie coming to the league, especially a rookie who wasn't even expected to be on the opening day roster coming into spring training. And he just did well. The team brought him up, and then from the moment he started to the end of the season, hit home runs. Crazy. Cody Bellinger just won MVP his 3rd year, 24. Like, I mean, again, these young guys, there's so much young talent in sports right now. It is crazy. Juan Soto turned 21 during the World Series, was the 4th youngest player to hit a home run in the World Series when he hit one in Game 1 before this is before he turned 21. He was about to turn 21, but regardless. He came up, was arguably probably their second best player. Well, position player, because, I mean, you could count Strasburg as their second best player in terms of him and Rendon. Also throwing Scherzer, Harry Kendrick, some other guys. But he was probably their second best hitter throughout most of the playoffs. Had big hits in the World Series, big hits in the wild card round, the NLDS, the NLCS. Like he just like whenever they needed a big hit from him, he came through and delivered. I mean, he was sensational. And again, he's a guy who has now won a World Series, been one of the best players on his team at 20, going on 21 years old. Another guy who's going to be here for a while and is already great. Vlad Guerrero Jr., who had his up and downs this season with the injuries and stuff, but when you saw him, when him and Pete Alonso were in the home run derby together, put on a show. A display of power that people didn't know was possible from a guy that young. Only 20 years old. Bright future in the league. Again, coming in, sending the league by storm. We have guys in other sports, in the non-major sports, like Mbappe, the French soccer player who set the World Cup on fire. I mean, he was the first teenager since Pele, I believe, to score in a World Cup final. I just want to double check for you guys, make sure I'm not giving... Yeah, he became the second teenager after Pele to score in a World Cup final, had 4 goals in the tournament, was given the FIFA World Cup Best Player Award. He was the youngest French goal scorer ever in the World Cup history at 19 years old. Like, he showed up. I mean, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games, and he showed up and showed out on the grandest of stages in terms of on his national team. Like, you play for the World Cup, he showed up to the World Cup, showed out, helped them win. I mean, he was one of the stars of the World Cup at 19 years old. Crazy. Naomi Osaka, tennis player, if you didn't know, beat Serena Williams in the U.S. Open at like 20. Was the first Japanese player to ever be the number 1 player in the world. Was the first Japanese player to win a singles Grand Slam. First player to win back-to-back Grand Slam because after she won the U.S. Open, I believe she won the Australian Open. Right after that, no, in terms of like next year, but like after that, and she was the first player to win her first Grand Slam. Then followed up with another Grand Slam. It's like 2001. It's just like when you look across all sports, there is so much young talent, and it's just, if you're a sports fan, it's amazing because you always wonder and you're always afraid, like, oh, when my favorite players that are older, like the LeBrons, the D Wade's, Kobe's, the Tom Brady's, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, like when some of these guys kind of fade out, who's going to be there to take their place? And these guys are not only here, but they're taking the place while they're still playing. I mean, obviously, maybe not LeBron with Luka, but like in terms of Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, like their places may already be taken as the best quarterbacks in the league by guys in their second, third year in the sport. Same with Pete Alonso. I mean, like Pete Alonso may be one of the best power hitters in the game already, as going on to his second year. Obviously, again, he's a little bit older. He's 25, but again, he could be very well one of the best power hitters in the league right now. It's just like it's so crazy to think about all the different sports that have such great young talent in there. And if you're listening to this and you're a guy that either has a kid already or had a kid recently, and you always wonder like you always want like them to be players that they can idolize and they can look up to. And I mean, there's so many to choose from right now. It's absurd. And again, these guys are going to be around for the next 10 to 15 years in these sports because they're so good, so young. And I mean, it's just like, as a sports fan, obviously as a sports fan, you're listening to this, wherever you are out there, you have to, I mean, it's just, you have to love this. You have to love this. It's just, no matter what sport you're watching, there are great young stars in it taking over the sport at early ages. And I mean, that's just that. To me, it's just an impressive thing to see. Personally, it's something that you don't assume and you don't expect guys to be so good so young. And these guys are coming in and being not only the good young, they're being great, like best player in their sport, great young. And like I said, it's just a sight to see. And it's no telling what the future holds because I mean, kids these days are only getting more bigger, stronger, athletic. Like, I mean, again, I didn't even touch on Zion, who we haven't even seen play yet in the NBA, who was a star, is walking media, is walking attraction basically. Summer League, basically, everybody was tuned in. His games and Summer League were packed. Hadn't talked about John Moran, who again has looked great as a rookie. It's like there's so many good young players in the sport now. I mean, I couldn't touch on all of them. There's probably ones I missed that you are like, oh wow, how did you not say this? And like, again, reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Leave it in a review. How I missed some of the other young great players in other sports. But like I said, there's so many great guys in sports. It is a sight to see. And one of those guys that could very well be that next great quarterback, that next great young quarterback, should say, is Tua, who made his decision on what he's going to do. Is he leaving? Is he staying? I guess you have to wait till after the break to find out what he did. We'll be right back.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast. So, what did he decide to do? In my opinion, he decided to do the smart thing, and decided to turn pro and declare for the NFL. Now, I say it's a smart thing to do because he was a guy who's done a lot, has obviously shown himself to play at the highest level in terms of like the biggest games. On the biggest stages, he's shown that he can handle that. He's shown that he can be great in college football. So there wasn't too much for him to show other than the fact that he could be healthy. But there's no guarantee of that because injuries have a lot to do with luck. So it's like, all right, I could either turn pro, continue to rehab, possibly be back in terms of an article I was reading on ESPN. They're going to check him out in like a couple months. I think like 3 months post operation. See where he's at. See what he can do. Maybe he'll even be able to throw his pro day. I wouldn't risk it, but who knows? He may be ready by then. And even if he's not, I mean, from all accounts, everybody, even out of Nick Saban's own mouth, he said he was the only guy who got a top 15 grade. Which again, I'm not going to say Nick Saban is wrong, but I'm pretty confident Jerry Judy is going in the top 10. Henry Ruggs may very well go in the top 15 after they see him run a 4.2 at the combine. Like, there were other guys in Alabama going in the top half of the first round. I digress. Regardless, Tua was the one guy that got that grade, and he was a guy that there's so many quarterback needy teams at the top of the draft, including Cincinnati, who has been basically tied to Joe Burrow for the longest. I mean, he's from Ohio, so it makes sense. But you don't know. Maybe Zach Taylor and that staff and that organization like Tua better. I mean, obviously, you got to check out the medical, make sure that checks out. And there's no red flags there or anything. But for all we know, Tua could still be the number one pick. I mean, no one thought Daniel Jones was going 6 at this point last year. I'm not sure everybody thought Kyler Murray was going to go number 1 until Cliff Kingsbury got hired by Arizona. A lot of people didn't think Baker Mayfield was going number 1 when he did. So you never the NFL draft is very unpredictable. So we don't really know what's going to happen. So for all we know, Tua could be the guy in Buffalo. For all we know, Chase Young could be the guy. Did I say Buffalo? Good God. Could be the guy for the Bengals. For all we know, Chase Young could be the guy for the Bengals. Like I said, we don't really know anything at this point. But outside of Cincinnati, you got Miami, who could need a quarterback. Well, needs a quarterback, but it just depends on if they want to get one this year or next year. You got the Chargers, who probably need a quarterback. You got Carolina, who could need a quarterback if they decide to move on from Cam. sneaky one like Detroit, who, I mean, Matt Stafford's still not that old, but you never know. If they decide they want to get his heir apparent ready. You got Oakland, who's in the top, who's number 12, who depends on how they feel about Derek Carr, may want to move on from him. You got Indianapolis, who, again, Jacoby Brissett was decent for them this year. Obviously, they lost. Andrew Luck retired. Sounds like he's going to stay retired, which he should. Good for him. But they could be in the need of a quarterback. Atlanta maybe is a sneaky one. Who else? Tampa is a sneaky one. They don't decide to keep Jameis. I mean, if they do, I understand if they want to keep him. If they don't, I understand. Because, I mean, you can't just have a guy going 30 for 30. He probably should get his own 30 for 30 for that season. But, yeah, you can't have a guy turn the ball over at that kind of a rate. I don't care if he threw for 5,000 yards. You can't win games turning the ball over like that. And they still went 7-9. So imagine if Jameis had like 15 picks. They probably could have made the playoffs. Not would have, but they probably could have made the playoffs. They just competed more so for the division and the wild card. So they're a sneaky team that could be in the need of a quarterback. I mean, and teams like Oakland have 2 first-round picks. Miami has 2 first-round picks. I mean, they're at 5, but they might not. So, like, teams have the ammo to trade up and go and get 2 if they want to. So that's why I was like, him going back to school was never a possibility for me. I mean, obviously, I'm not him. I'm not the one making the decisions for him. I'm not the one advising him. But in my mind, it didn't make any sense for him to go back. There's nothing really for him to gain other than, like, prove he can be healthy. That's stupid, in my opinion, because, again, you're guaranteed, like, I'm going to say, he's pretty much guaranteed to go in the first round as long as his medical reasonably checks out. Now, if that doesn't happen, all right, he might slip. But, again, that might not check out next year, because there's a possibility he could get hurt again. So if I'm him, I'd much rather get hurt while getting paid than get hurt for free. And then now I may not ever get to the NFL, at least this year. I'm pretty confident I'll be able to at least go in the first round. So worst comes to worst, he gets hurt again. Obviously, I don't want that for him, but it's unfortunate for him. He's a guy that's had bad injury luck in his career, so it's a possibility. Whether it's knee, ankle, hip. He's had different issues during his time at Alabama. So if he gets hurt again in the NFL, again, at least he's getting paid for it, and he may not get hurt because he may not even play this next year. So if he's going to sit out, if I'm also going to sit out and rehab and do other things, I'd also rather get paid for than rehab at Alabama, even though they have great doctors, great facilities there and everything. But just like, I mean, why not get paid to do it? And again, my opinion, but. Like I said, it was a decision that I figured he was going to make, and he did make, and I think it could very well. I'm just obviously going to impact the NFL because now there's another quarterback worth drafting high. Because I mean, you could argue, body of work versus body of work. Tua may very well be the better quarterback than Joe Burrow. Obviously, Joe Burrow's put up astronomical numbers this year, so him going number 1 is not shocking to me. But I mean, there are going to be people out there that like Tua more than him. I mean, Tua was the number 1 quarterback coming to the year. It's not like he fell off; he just got hurt. So it's like again, it's not like he was bad this year. Like he literally just got hurt, and Joe Burrow came out of nowhere to be this good. I mean, people probably thought he could be better than he was, but I mean, a lot of people had like mid-round grades on him that have talked. A lot of draft guys that have talked, and so obviously for him to go from there to the first overall pick would be a giant leap. So, like I said, there's going to be people that still believe Tua is the best quarterback, but it'd be interesting to see how Alabama fares after this because. The past couple years with Tua in there, they had special quarterback play. Now, for most of my lifetime, Alabama has had, at least during the Nick Saban era, Alabama has had good to great college quarterback play. With Tua, they had special quarterback play in terms of he was able to do things and make plays that no other Alabama quarterback up to that point was able to do. At least, again, in the Nick Saban era that I saw. Now, Mac Jones came in, did well. It'll be interesting to see how he looks next year without Jerry Jeudy, without Henry Ruggs. Obviously, Devontae Smith came back. They still have Jalen Waddle. Alex Leatherwood, the offensive lineman, came back. So, and then obviously Alabama always has great recruiting classes. So it's not going to be it's not going to be without talent. But it'll be interesting to see what they look like if they go back to just like good to great college quarterback play as opposed to having special quarterback play. Because very rarely again, during Nick Saban's time, has Alabama come in and had the better quarterback in like the high-profile games they had? And with Tua, you could say that they had the best quarterback on the field almost every time they lined up to play. And that's something that will be interesting to see if they still had that with whether it's Mac Jones or if it's I think they had the number one recruit in the 2020 class in terms of dual threat. Bryce Young, I believe, is his name. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes in, takes over that job, what he looks like there. But yeah, just like I said, and then I mean, you already have guys like Trevor Lawrence coming back for Clemson, Justin Fields coming back for Ohio State. Both teams that were in the college football playoff this past year. One team that, again, Trevor Lawrence is playing in the national championship this year has yet to lose a game. See if that holds up when he plays LSU on Monday. But has not lost a game in college. He hasn't lost a game since I think he only lost 2 games in high school. I think I saw a graphic for that on Twitter somewhere from one of those sports accounts. So I'd have to fact check that for you guys. I'll get back to you on that. But I believe he's only lost 2 games since his high school career began. So, you have teams out there that are going to have great quarterbacks coming back next year, and it'll be interesting to see if Alabama will be one of those teams. Because again, with Tua, they have that. Without Tua, they might not have it. So, that decision, his decision affects him, affected the NFL draft, because now instead of having Lawrence, Fields, and him in the 2021 draft, where teams I actively believe would have tanked for. Honestly, teams tried to tank this year in terms of just trading away all the good players, and even for Miami, it kind of works to get into 5th, but they still won 5 games. The Bengals didn't really try to tank, but they were just bad for whatever reason. But I honestly believe if all 3 of them were in the draft, teams that need a quarterback would have actively tried to lose games. I think the players know, because that's not how the NFL works, but front offices and ownership would have been we're trying to do everything they can to make sure they could lose games, so they can be in position to draft these guys. But with Lawrence and Fields, I think that still might happen, because Trevor Lawrence might be the most hyped quarterback prospect. People like to say Andrew Luck, and before him was John Elway, but he may be even bigger than that. I remember hearing about this guy while he was still in high school. Before, he seemed when he was young in high school, hearing about the next big thing, and obviously he's lived up to the hype. So I think teams still might tank for him, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, Tua leaving, like I said, affects this current draft, affects the next draft, and affects college football next year, and also his own life. So it's a very big decision, and it was one that I figured the decision he made was the one he was going to make. It's the one he ended up making. And I wish him the best, and I think he will. If he's healthy, he will be successful in the NFL. I believe. He's a little bit small, but he's a guy that's mobile enough, can make all the throws, has great touch, great accuracy. Obviously, he had great weapons at the college level, so it'll be interesting to see if he goes to a team that's not that good at the receiver position and tight ends and running backs and O-line, how he looks, but. Yeah, that might be a reason for him to sit a year, especially if he goes to a place like Miami that needs to accumulate some more talent. What they decide to do with him, but yeah, I think he'll be fine. And this was, in my opinion, the best decision for him, for his family, for everybody. Again, I'm always pro. Go get your money. Always pro. Go get your money, because you're not getting paid in college. Maybe that'll change in a couple of years, and you can profit off your likeness as an NCAA athlete. But as of this moment now. Whenever you have the opportunity to get your money, especially first-round money, you got to take it. And I know it's a tough decision for Tua, but I believe, at the very least, if he's at peace with his decision, then that's really all that matters. What I say about it doesn't really matter. What you say about it, what anybody else says about it, doesn't really matter. As long as him and his family are at peace with it, then it was the best decision for him. So I'm good. I'm happy to see that. I'll be looking forward to see where he ends up. Hopefully he can be healthy and ready to play next year, because I'm again, like I said, he's one of the most entertaining quarterbacks in college the last couple of years, so I'm interested to see how he transitions to the NFL. But after we come back from this last break, we're going to talk about a scandal that is taking a major sport by storm. And if you didn't know, then there is... If you thought you knew about it, then you may not know that there was new developments within that scandal, within this sport. If you know what I'm talking about, then then keep it to yourself for right now. We'll talk about it in a second. But if you don't know, then I'm willing to inform you right after this break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
We are back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcasting by GSMC Podcast Network. So if you didn't know what I'm talking about, there is an epidemic, if you will, of sign stealing going on in Major League Baseball. Now, if you pay attention to baseball, this is not new. Obviously, the Astros were caught months ago. There's been an investigation on them for a little bit. The commissioner of the MLB, Rob Manfred, says that that their discoveries and the penalties will be waged on the Astros in the coming weeks. But they are not the only team to get caught. The MLB has now launched an investigation into possible illegal sign stealing by the Boston Red Sox in 2018. If you didn't know, that happens to be the year they won the World Series. Might have helped, might not. That will follow, and this investigation will follow the same template into investigations into the similar into similar allegations that were made against the Houston Astros in 2017 and 2018. The commissioner already categorized this investigation as probably the most thorough investigation the commissioner's office has ever undertaken, and I imagine they're going to attack the Red Sox allegations with the same thoroughness, in terms of that you have to get to the bottom of this. You have to make sure that you find a way to see who's doing this, maybe find out who else is doing this. Because again, if two teams have done this and both of these teams have won the World Series in the past few years, it's going to be interesting to see who else has been doing this. Just because we don't know. I'm not going to accuse anybody of doing anything, though I will accuse the Yankees of not doing this, because as I saw on Twitter earlier today, someone made a joke that if there's no way that they could be stealing signs, by the way, if you look at the way some of their players swing at off-speed pitches, I wouldn't go that far, but I thought it was funny. And if you're a Yankee fan, I'm sorry. Your players definitely swing freely when they go up to the plate. Not a bad thing. And if you aren't a Yankees fan, I imagine you might have seen that and also found that funny. But it'll be interesting to see in this investigation who else and what else they find about other organizations and other teams, because sign stealing in and of itself is not a new issue in the MLB. Sign stealing has been a thing in baseball for a while. It's just the way in which it's done now. It's done at such a level with different types of things. Normally, it was just like the base runner had to try to do it. Now they got. The Astros were caught with. They had a camera near their dugout that was connected to the camera in center field, and that allowed them to see the signs that the camera I guess somehow they have to figure out the order, because the catchers nowadays, they put down like 4 or 5 different signs, and once you figure out what the order of it is, then what they did is they would bang on a trash can or bang on the ceiling or something whenever an off-speed pitch was coming, so the guy could know, and obviously that helped. And it seems the Red Sox are doing a similar thing, and the issue with this one is not the issue, but Boston's going to have to face a severe penalty for it, in my opinion. And all this is based all these allegations and things I'm telling you are based on a Sports Illustrated story about the topic, which you could read yourself by Tom Verducci. Came out Tuesday, so when you were hearing this on Wednesday yesterday. And in the article, he said Boston faces severe discipline because of the activities in question occurred after 2 separate warnings by the MLB that define the illegal use of technology, one in September 2017 and one in March of 18. And like the commissioner had to, he called the Red Sox principal on him and told him that they have to investigate this. In terms of the Houston investigation, which took 3 months, like I said, very long, very thorough, as the commissioners pointed out. They interviewed more than 60 people and acquired over 70,000 emails in addition to text messages from club employees that were required to turn their phones over. And Manfred assured the Red Sox owner that personnel for the Red Sox were going to have to do the same type of thing just because it wouldn't be fair to do it to Astros and not do it to Red Sox. So I completely understand. And it's just a thing, and it's definitely going to be an issue because of how well the Red Sox batted with runners in scoring position in 2018. In 2018, the Boston posted an OPS with runners in scoring position of .872, the highest in the majors and the highest in 12 years. And 77% of those plate appearances occurred with runners on second base, with a runner at second base. So clearly, the science thing was very beneficial to them and helped them lead them to regular season success and potentially even postseason success as they were able to win the World Series. So this is a thing where you have to, if you're the MLB and if you're the commissioner, you have to crack down on this hard just to make sure that you can flesh it out so anybody that's planning on doing this isn't doing it, and anyone that was doing it and hadn't gotten caught yet isn't going to do this anymore. And also to show that, like, because if you, I guess kind of piggyback on the same point, if you don't come down hard on this, then it's going to continue, and that's what I imagine they don't want. They don't want a black cloud of cheating over their sport, especially in a sport where you already, unfortunately for them, they're already struggling to get some of the younger viewers, and I think cheating scandals running rampant in the sport is not going to help them with that viewership. Though obviously, cheating in terms of steroid era helps spike the viewers, but this is definitely a different type of cheating. But yeah, it's just one of those situations where you're going to have to come down hard, because if you don't, then more teams are going to, then either the teams that are doing it's going to continue to do it because they're like, oh, okay, we just got to find money or something. Like, that's not, these owners are rich. So let's just like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's not really, I mean, obviously, rich people don't like losing money, so I don't want to say they won't care, but obviously you're going to need to hit them hard. Like $1 million fine's not really going to do anything. That's not going to deter people from either A, doing this again, or B, doing it if they see how successful it is with other teams. And then also, it's a situation where you just gotta figure out what is deemed strong enough. Like, is it like the NCAA where you gotta vacate wins, you gotta give back titles, you gotta give back like awards you may have won as a part of this cheating? Like, I mean, you see in the NCAA when like improper benefits are given out, you got like the Fab Five, their wins are vacated. Reggie Bush had to give his Heisman Trophy back just for like little like stuff that wasn't really that big. Just like they got money or just like benefits or whatever. It's not like they were literally actively cheating during the games, which is what the sport is. So it's like, do they got to vacate wins? Do they got to vacate titles? Do managers get fired? Do they got to give up draft picks? Are they unallowed to sign free agents or player? Like, it'd be interesting to see what they do, because like I said, I don't think money in this scenario is enough. Obviously, like I said, that really helps the owner, but that doesn't really affect, other than like having this like, oh, you guys cheated thing. It's like, all right, you like, because I like I said, I imagine these aren't the only two teams that have done this science thing. Technology's too good for teams, especially if they're hearing teams like the Astros and the Red Sox doing this and how good those teams are. Like, I don't think they're going to be like, nah, unwritten rule, I'm not going to cheat, kind of thing. And, I mean, you would think they might, just because that the MLB is big on those unwritten rules or whatever that. I think the unwritten rules are stupid, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, as pure as baseball tries to claim to be, even though they've had different cheating scandals in the past, for various things. I would be surprised if these were the only two teams that were doing it. So the MLB, the commissioner's office, they have to find a way to crack down on this hard, or you risk this type of thing just running rampant through your sport. And that's, like I said, that's the last thing you want. I mean, everybody's trying to find an advantage whatever way they can. Normally they try to do it legally. You prefer to do it legally, but teach his own. Everybody does it a little differently. These teams decide to take the illegal route, and it's like, if you don't punish them for it, they will either A, continue, or B, lead to other people doing that, because it is shown that what is going to be waged against the organization for doing that is not that strong. So, like I said, it's very important that the MLB and the Commissioner's Office does something, and does something severe, because if they don't, then they, like I said, they risk this just being, now it's just a part of their sport now, where everyone's going to be, everyone was already trying to steal signs regardless, but now it's going to be even more rampant, and you're going to have to be doing investigations year after year after year into teams that were illegally stealing signs, like through different forms of technology. So, like I said, the full article about the situation, what the Red Sox did, and what the Astros did, and like how the investigation will be conducted, is on Sports Illustrated. At least that's the one I read. There's other articles about it as well. Tom Verducci, great writer, he wrote the story. But like I said, if you want to learn more, if you're a Boston fan out there, I'm sorry. This is your team. Maybe you really don't care because you won the World Series already and they haven't taken it away yet, so it is what it is. If you're a Nationals fan, same deal. If you're a fan of a team out there and you don't know that you cheated yet, don't talk too badly about these two teams, because for all you know, I guarantee you Red Sox fans are out there ridiculing and criticizing the Astros, and bada bing, bada boom, now you're a part of it too. So I would at least wait this out if I'm a fan of other baseball teams, just because you don't know that your team didn't do this. So until you know that you didn't, then alright, make all your jokes and do whatever. But until that happens and you're clear of all wrongdoing, I would sit this one out, because you don't want to look like a fool when a couple months now it's your team's the one being investigated. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I will, whenever decisions are made, penalties are waged, we find out the ramifications for these actions, I will be back here to discuss them with you all. But for today, that is my time. I want to thank you guys again for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast, written by GSMC Podcast Network. If you can, as always, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Give us a 5-star rating and review. Very helpful, continue to help us to get better. Continue to help us provide you with the best content that we can. If you're on social media, we are also on social media. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Tweet us, comment, do whatever, interact with us in whatever way you seem fit. All the people at the network here are more than willing to communicate back and forth with you. You can talk about different show topics. You can tell me what things you didn't like, things you want to hear about. Maybe I'm not doing a good job of touching on certain topics. If there's stuff you want to hear, I am all ears, just like everyone else on the network. So please let me know. And for now, that'll do it for me. I have been Chris Blades. Peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.